My fellow gamers, in 2024, the global video game industry brought in an estimated $208 billion. So when you hear that companies are allegedly thinking of raising the standard edition prices to $100 each, does that make you happy? I don't think it does, but you know who is shilling for the mainstream industry? Do you know who is sitting here defending this decision? The mainstream media. Before we get into the topic, though, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, you can always rely on the access media to sit here and shill for these companies. And I understand that companies do need to make money. That is their business. But at the end of the day, they need to be giving us high quality experiences that are worth the prices they're asking. And I am not going to sit here and say that, oh, $100 per game is a good decision. Imagine just buying one video game a month. That is a mind-boggling amount of money, especially when the hardware itself costs $500, $600, $700, $800 if you're buying the PS5 Pro and the disc drive. But to top all of that off, there's PCs, which cost thousands upon thousands of dollars when games are so poorly optimized that you need the best tech on the market to be able to run them with decent graphics. And GTA 6 is a game we've all been looking forward to. We've all been questioning what it's going to entail, if they're going to change anything, if it's going to be edgy like the franchise has been in the past, if it's going to be worth the wait, because we have been waiting so long. But there is a new discussion that is circulating because apparently analysts are saying that this game could cost $100, and GameSpot is saying that it could help the video game industry rebound in 2025. The Gamer is saying that this title needs to be more expensive, which is crazy, okay? In 2024, the global video game industry brought in an estimated $208 billion. That is a lot of money. Do you know how much Hollywood is making right now? $12 billion a year. That is nothing compared to video games. And sure, companies always want to find a way to make more money, but they need to be creating higher quality experiences. And that could have been up to $300 billion. So look at Ubisoft alone. They spent, it's estimated, technically Assassin's Creed Shadows doesn't have to do with the 2024 numbers, but if we do count it, because it was supposed to originally release in 2024, they would have spent $1.5 billion on the development of the games that failed. Skull and Bones was an estimated $500 to $700 million. I don't necessarily know if I believe that figure. I think it's closer to like $300 or $400 million, but regardless, it's a hell of a lot of money. That was a quadruple A failure. X-Defiant, they put in 6 years to development and it came out, it flopped. It was not the COD killer they expected. Star Wars Outlaws, they put the most amount of money they ever had towards marketing that game. It came out, it sold, as far as we're aware, like 1.5 million copies, which is nothing compared to Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor, which combined sold 15 million copies, and that's already a figure that's a year old. And then you have Assassin's Creed Shadows, hundreds of millions of dollars spent. We don't even know now because they've delayed it twice, and the first delay cost an estimated like $30 million extra. Who knows about this one? It is a shorter amount of time, but regardless, they're spending hundreds of millions to billions of dollars on these failures. Imagine if all of those games were successful. Imagine how much money Ubisoft could have made. This is what happens when you do not put player requests first and you are not putting high quality experiences out into the world for everybody to enjoy. If these were all really great games, they could have been making a lot more money, and that's just one company alone. And sure, out of that $208 billion, a lot of it didn't come from AAA games. Roughly $98 billion was made from mobile games, but that still shows the size of the non-mobile market and how it's gigantic and how these companies do not need to be charging $100 in order to make money. They just need to charge these $70 for a standard edition, make these special editions maybe $100 or $130, and actually deliver good content to gamers. Games do not need to be more expensive. Companies need to be making higher quality experiences because then they're going to make that much more money. And sure, I think that it is perfectly fine to offer more expensive versions, like with Assassin's Creed Shadows or Star Wars Outlaws. While I would not pay $130 for those editions, I think it is fine to have a $70 standard and then a $100 deluxe and a $130 collector's or special edition. Those are perfectly fine as long as you are giving people extra content that is worth that money. Usually they consist of like battle passes, digital art books, soundtracks, stuff like that, which is cool. But again, you don't need to make games more expensive. You just need to be making better experiences, and then you're going to make that much more money. GTA 6 is estimated to make $1 billion in pre-orders alone. So this article says, it's not a good time to be in the games industry. Layoffs are constant and studios are getting shut down on a regular basis. Games require more time and money than ever, and competition is only getting more intense. Crunch is also a thing, making developers not just underpaid but overworked. Video games are a riskier investment than ever. Yes, the video game industry is facing some problems right now, but when you look at the size and the scope of the video game industry, how many millions of developers are within this industry, and how many thousands upon thousands of studios there are, it is really hard to sit here and say the industry is in complete turmoil. It's like I talk about all the time with companies like Ubisoft. Yeah, they are failing. They are losing a hell of a lot of money. But there are so many indie studios and AA games that are coming out that are really amazing, that are making a boatload of money. Those companies are eventually going to replace the behemoths in the industry. And while the largest companies in the industry are struggling, they're slowly losing their relevancy, while indies are slowly rising on the charts. And that's a good thing, at least in my opinion. In a report called State of Video Games in 2025, a veteran investment analyst looked at a number of industry trends, including how the mobile marketplace is faring, the relevance of emerging markets like China, and the state of AR/VR games. AR and VR is not a good investment. Those games typically do not sell very well. It's just not the future in the next year or two. Sure, maybe in like 10 years, VR will be a good investment. But as of right now, with the prices of the headsets and then the full priced games, and typically the games are not of a great quality, it's just not worth it. But they talk about how GTA 6 could be pivotal for the industry. They mention how the presentation says while it'll have a mixed impact on the overall market, we already know everybody and their mother will play this game on launch and ignore everything else for several months, and every other game will run and hide from its release window. And this is true, and that should be the case. This is probably going to be a behemoth of a game that everybody is going to love. They talk about how there is hope that Take-Two will price GTA 6 at $80 or even $100, breaking the arbitrary $70 price barrier we have been accustomed to for several years now, and letting other studios then make their games more expensive as a net consequence. Yeah, when one major company does something, every other company follows. Look at loot boxes. Look at how EA suddenly pushed out loot boxes in every single game, predatory or not, and then other companies followed. Luckily, we fought back against those, and we do not see as many predatory loot boxes in video games anymore. They typically are just like loot boxes with skins, such as Overwatch 2, for example. But we still are seeing problems with things like battle passes now. There are battle passes that will give you items like guns or just weapons and armor, which gives you an unfair advantage over other players if it is in a competitive game, and that is unfortunate. We're still fighting back against that. Look at how we fought back against live service over the past few years. Games like Concord, Kill the Justice League, all flops. There have been very few successful live service titles, and we are not afraid to speak our minds, and companies need to realize that if they decide to start charging $100 for games, gamers are going to boycott their titles. Gamers are going to be very selective. And look at the lineup for games just releasing in February. You have Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. We were supposed to have Assassin's Creed Shadows. I genuinely believe that they moved it to March because there are too many games releasing in February. You have Avowed, and you have Monster Hunter Wilds. That is so many games, and it is okay to release a bunch of titles at once if you want to lose out on money already. Never mind if they are $100 each. And I do not think that this move would be very wise for the industry with how much money they are currently making. Bumping up the prices would lead to a lot of people saying, I need to find a different hobby, or I need to be very selective with games I'm buying, and that's going to push more people into buying the $2 or $5 or $10 games on platforms like Steam or GOG. Look at something like The Witcher, for example. If The Witcher 4 is $100, I will always suggest going back and playing the other 3 games because you can get them in a bundle for like 20 to 25 bucks during, summer sales and winter sales, and they're definitely worth the price. I would not sit here and suggest you go out of your way to buy something like The Witcher 4, though, if it's $100, and that is just going to become the norm, is gamers boycotting expensive games and deciding enough is enough, I'm just going to go to my backlog. And I guess if that's the direction that companies want to go, and we can also go in another direction and find other ways potentially to play new video games. I don't know, I'm not saying anything specific. I definitely always buy my video games. I would never try to find an alternative way to play them, especially ones that are not easily accessible on something like a storefront. I would never download something as bad as an emulator, but at the end of the day, it looks really bad for these companies to even humor the idea of raising their prices to $100 for standard editions of games. And of course, it's not really shocking that the mainstream media is sitting here saying, oh, this would be an awesome change. This would be an amazing decision for them, and it could help the video game industry rebound in 2025. But when you look at how much money these companies are making, it is mind-boggling, and I can't sit here and say that they deserve any more. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I'll talk to you all again in the next video really soon.